Welcome, Ark Losters. In this video, I'm going to learn you the basics of Lost Ark combat that isn't immediately intuitive, without it being over an hour long. We will achieve this by going through the different parts of your individual skills summaries. The first thing you will notice when you mouse over a skill is the skill type. There are 8 different skill types as shown on the screen right now. Since they are pretty intuitive upon use, I will not go over them individually. What I will note, however, is that these skill description summaries are sometimes misleading. Note that this Earth Eater skill clearly says it's a normal skill, but when I press it down, it is clearly a charging skill. This is because skills have tripods that can modify the skill to fit your playstyle, and as you can see, this yellow tripod changes the skill from a normal skill to a charging skill. These tripod options are available based on your skill's level, and while which tripod you choose can fundamentally change how the skill operates and what you use it for, none of these changes are reflected in the skill summaries afterwards. Now then, let's keep going down the list. First thing on the list is a weak point level. As with skill type, the written weak point level is not the actual amount applied because it does not take tripods into account. Skills with this attribute are used in what are known as destruction checks, which are combat phases requiring a certain level of weak point damage done to the boss. Destruction checks usually show a teal crosshair to denote where to apply the weak point skills, but sometimes it just shows a blue circular health bar instead, at which point you can only know for sure if you use a weak point skill and see a big text saying destruction. Moving on, the next attribute you see is the skill stagger. During combat, there will be stagger checks requiring a certain level of it within a given time, usually denoted by a yellow depleting progress bar. A boss may also have a purple bar under its red health bar that depletes throughout the entire fight if staggers applied during certain patterns. Depletion of this purple bar will result in what's called full stagger, where the boss is incapacitated for a period of time for everyone to enjoy a free DPS window. Another important thing to note regarding stagger is that value denoted in the skill summary is particularly misleading, since tripod effects can drastically change the stagger value of the skill cast without even mentioning the word stagger. If you want a truly accurate stagger value for your skill's tripod configuration, you will have to consult an outside source. Next, we have the attack type. Once again, this attribute can be altered by a tripod without it showing in the summary, but at least this time there isn't any tripods that doesn't even mention the change. The attack type attribute basically means that the skill is affected by certain modifiers based on your character's position relative to the boss's front or back. Hitting a frontal attack from the boss's front will make the skill do 20% more damage and stagger, while hitting a back attack from the boss's back provides the skill an extra 10% critical hit chance, as well as 5% more damage. Also, certain engravings only apply to successful front attacks and back attacks. If you ever find yourself wondering if you should wait to guarantee a front or back attack, or if you should use the skill ASAP to get another cast off sooner, the exact comparison to be done would be the percentage of skill cooldown spent on guaranteeing the front or back attack versus the percentage of skill damage lost from not hitting the front or back. Since that can be rather complicated, a simpler general rule is that if you have engravings based on the attack type modifier and the skill in question is among your top 3 biggest hitting skills, then it is generally more important to actually hit into the appropriate attack type locations. Alright, super armor. We have now reached what is by far the most important aspect of Lost Ark combat. First, we must understand the 5 levels of impairment your character can be under. At the very bottom, we have the regular stagger. If your character is moving around or standing still without casting any skills or attacks, being hit by a staggering attack will briefly interrupt your movement, disabling you from casting any skills or attacks during the interruption. To gain immunity to staggering attacks, you can simply perform any form of attacking, such as casting any skill or even just auto-attacking. The next level above is known as paralysis. Paralysis is similar to stagger in that it generally drags your character around on its feet, unable to cast any skills. Unlike stagger, however, immunity to paralysis involves casting skills that explicitly mention having super armor, paralysis immunity. Simple auto attacks for skills without immunity will be interrupted out of their cast, often going on cooldown without actually firing. Note once again that the skill summary does not reflect tripod modifications, which may grant higher tier immunities. In general, you should always assume all attacks from raid bosses that don't knock you off your feet or cause other crowd controls to be paralysis until proven otherwise. The third level to be mentioned is push. Push attacks involve any attacks that knock your character off your feet, such as knock-ups, knockdowns, and knockaways, that eventually put your character on the floor and expose you to dangerous follow-ups. Push immunity allows you to fire your skills while tanking these push attacks, allowing you to continue attacking the boss through an otherwise incapacitating pattern. Players and enemies who have push immunity or higher are easily distinguishable by an orange outline around them on your screen. Although boss-ranked enemies like raid bosses may not always have this outline, as it is already implied. Something worth noting here is that push immunity is considered a level 3 immunity. As a level 3 immunity, push immunity inherently grants immunity to all levels below, including paralysis and regular stagger. Similarly, higher level immunities inherently have push immunity, as we will talk about shortly. Before moving on, we must first talk about the stand-up skill. If you're on the floor, you can use stand-up to immediately get off the floor and back on your feet. But beware that stand-up has a very long 30-second cooldown, so if you're downed again, you may be unable to react to a follow-up when you actually need it. And now, we can finally talk about level 4, status immunity. The animation of standing up, both naturally and when using your stand-up skill, are considered status immune. Spacebar dodging, regular awakening, and some special skills also grant status immunity. So, what is status immunity? Well, besides inherently providing super armor against push and paralysis, status immunity also protects you from debilitating debuffs that incapacitate and interrupt your combat. These include freezes, fears, stuns, sleeps, diseases, earthquakes, electrocutions, petrifications, imprisonment, crippling depression, real-life obligations, and of course, suddenly breaking out into Bollywood-style dancing. Jokes aside, if you or your allies are afflicted with any of these statuses, the icon of these debuffs may appear with either a solid outline or a flashing outline. Solid outline on a debuff means they can be cleansed by purifying skills that remove debuffs, or by the use of sacred charms or sacred bombs. Also note that sacred bombs only remove incapacitating statuses, while sacred charms remove one debuff of any kind, including bleeds, blinds, or slows. As for flashing outline debuffs, they cannot be removed by normal means, but some of them can be prevented in the first place by having status immunity during the attack that applies the debuff. Raid patterns that incorporate statuses are not so subtle hints from the game to actually save your spacebar for when you actually need it, instead of wasting it to stick to the boss. Lost Ark combat is very much about deliberate use of these resources over instinctive reactions. The faster you learn to minimize unnecessary waste of your immunities, the faster you will become a top tier player. And at last, we have finally reached level 5. If you are a veteran watching this video, you may have been wondering what I might be mentioning here, since this level is not traditionally considered a level. I am of course talking about the fuck you tier. What is the fuck you tier? Well, imagine if a skill you've been hit by knocks you down, so next time you use a push immunity to try and tank the skill. Well, guess what, idiot? That was actually a fuck you skill. These skills ignore all immunities and will interrupt you out of basically everything. Spacebarring to run away? Snatched right back. Awakening to tank it? Get interrupted, moron. You've fallen and can't get up, but think you're safe from the status immunity of stand-up? Sorry, Grandma. Your healthcare doesn't cover that condition. Go straight to the afterlife. Do not collect welfare. Fuck you. And beyond the regular fuck you skills, we also have grabs, the bane of all front attackers' existence. Similar to fuck you skills, no immunities will save you from getting bear hugged and getting fucked. The only way to immune from these skills are to dodge them completely, or achieving level 5 immunity from time stop potion or hyper awakening cutscene. whereas status immunities are about saving your immunities for the right time to continue your combat. Level 5 is the game telling you to stop whatever you're doing and focus on dodging the attack, because time stops are usually more detrimental to your DPS than helpful, not to mention abusing them is rather expensive. This covers all levels of impairments and immunities, except for everyone's favorite, straight up death. Learning how immunities work is by far the most important part of understanding Lost Ark's combat, and planning your immunities and rotations around the boss's impairments and executing them perfectly is one of the best feelings you can get from Lost Ark combat. With all that said, there's few more special mechanics we have to cover, starting with the final line found on your skill summary, counter. Skill with counter designation can be used on the boss's front as they flash blue to interrupt the current attack, often incapacitating them and providing a small DPS window. Some counter patterns, if not properly countered, will simply wipe the raid, so it is mandatory for every class to take a counter skill unless reliably covered for by other members of the raid. As with all skill attributes, be sure to check the tripods of the skill to see if any of them remove the ability to counter, as well as which parts of the skill's hits actually functions as a counter. Lastly, I want to go over 2 more combat mechanics that aren't mentioned through the skill summaries, which are Just Guards and Clashes. Both of these mechanics utilize your interact key, which is the G key by default. Just Guards will have the boss flash yellow before an attack, and to prevent damage you must press G while facing the origin of the attack at the correct timing. Normal difficulty raids often accurately telegraph the timing to press G, as well as show arrows towards the direction you must point to guarding. On the other hand, hard difficulty raids and above may omit these indicators or outright lie about when you must press G. Getting good at Just Guards will require learning these patterns from normal mode, consulting the raid-specific guides, or experiencing them yourself. And finally, Clashes will have the boss flash with a white and gold ring around them with a particular sound effect, and players will have to go to specific locations on the map to press G and enter a quick time event cutscene. This is by far the most hated mechanic in the game due to the fact that the person taking it is unable to DPS and is generally boring. But if no one takes the clash, or if the person taking it fails too many buttons, it usually wipes the raid completely. One thing worth noting here is that support should never take clashes unless no one else is available or is forced upon them, because losing 1 DPS to clash is better than losing all of them from the support being occupied and not providing the necessary mana and buffs. And that about sums up Lost Ark combat. If you found this video helpful, like and sub and share it with your friends. I'll see you next time when I feel like making more videos. Fucking, I should just use AI.